Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetzky, Andy Kamenetzky. The Lakers have new ownership coming in. How do the stars feel about it, especially Luka Doncic? That is next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter how, where you get your podcasts, this one's always free, never behind paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube, of course, where you can go hang out with over 35,000 subscribers to the channel. All of whom, Andy, are trying to figure out exactly what this ownership shift is going to mean. And, of course, whether or not the star players in the Lakers, and particularly Luka Doncic, is on board with this whole thing. All of that we will unpack over the course of this episode. Want to let people know first, though, that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So we'll get to Luka here in a moment because obviously how he feels about his future boss, one would think, is relevant to whether or not he would be enthusiastic about signing that extension that everybody is expecting him to sign. So we will talk about that because Luka posted a little on social about this whole thing. So we'll get to that. But before we do, there's more kind of coming out and being explained about what exactly is going on here. And a lot of this coming from our friend Ramona Shelburne. She's done a bunch, she was doing a lot of radio stuff today across 710 ESPN. And
the lady's doing this while literally covering the NBA Finals. Like, she is shuttling back and forth from Oklahoma City and Indiana. Like, give Momo all the Pulitzers, man.
It affords plenty of downtime to be able to talk to people.
Working, that lady's working hard, man.
So, but there is an interesting thing going on here where Jeanie Buss and the and the Buss family will not be primary owners of the team. It is estimated that almost 70%, maybe even a little more than 70% of the team will be owned by Mark Walter and the Guggenheim Group. The Buss family, the number I saw, Andy, today was about 15% or so.
That is what I've seen. That's
16%, give or take. I would say what's a percent here, what's a percent there, but for something that might be worth 11, 10, 11, 12 billion dollars, a percent isn't something to sneeze at. But we'll call it 15% just for the sake of discussion.
The percent here, really quickly, for the purposes of what Lakers fans actually give a bleep about, because I think the check that is going to be scratched out to all 6 Buss siblings, most of our audience could not give a damn one way or the other. Right. The reason the percentage matters, whether it's 15, 16, whatever, we're talking about the minimum required in order for Jeanie Buss to formally remain on as controlling governor of the team.
Like, and that number is 15.
Right. So, that's why it actually matters, as opposed to what their cash out is going to be.
Correct.
They don't care.
And so, there, I think, is about 7% or so that are controlled by what I think most Lakers fans would call randoms, people who are immaterial to this discussion. And, so I was kind of poking around today to see if there is an example of this where the team's governor is not the majority owner. And I couldn't find one. That doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't exist. But I think what the Lakers are entering into is a very unusual era here where, at least for the time being, as Ramona is reporting, Jeanie Buss is going to stay on as the team's governor, even really by design, something that Mark Walter is not just comfortable with, but in Ramona's reporting, at least, she believes is something that he wants to see happen. And on the one hand, Andy, it is a lot because she understands the brand, the business is well run, and all these other things. So fans might look at this and say, like what's really changing? But the flip side is, if you were to just focusing on the administration of a team, the running of it, the business side, all these, and you wanted to hire somebody to do those things, Jeanie Buss has as good a resume as anybody you're going to find. The business side of the Lakers and the marketing and the branding side of the Lakers has never been the problem.
I'll be honest, I don't quite know what Jeanie's going to be doing, and I don't.
Right, and that's sort of what we're going to get to, because that half of it isn't the part that fans really care about.
Right, but the reason I say this is just because, I mean, even with somebody like Ramona, who's been as deep into the reporting and figuring out of all this as anybody, it still is not quite clear what that actually means. Like, the thing that we know changes is, despite whatever Jeanie Buss's title is, whatever the role is fleshed out to be, she is by definition no longer the ultimate shot caller in this organization, because she is not anywhere close to majority shareholders. So, I mean, that in and of itself is a major dynamic change, no matter what the title is, no matter if her title is really a thing of substantive job or pure semantics or somewhere in between. Things have changed. Like, people need to understand that. Like, I get an impression, and again, it's purely an impression, like everybody, we're figuring this out as we go. It seems like some of this is Mark Walter recognizing that Jeanie could be very helpful in transitioning everything that's eventually going to be the new permanent look. Because, like, for example, the draft and free agency is in like a few weeks. Even if Mark Walter wanted to completely clean house and get rid of everybody who works there and bring in an entirely new everything, you cannot properly do that in 3 weeks.
Right.
Like, that would be an absolutely haphazard way to go about.
Well, I don't. First of all, I mean, just as a side note, I don't think any of this can actually. I don't think you can start doing stuff with Mark Walter as the owner until Mark Walter actually owns the team.
I mean, Matt Ishbia was already dealing for Kevin Durant before I even think he had an office there.
But I'm just saying, like, there's certain things, like there are things that have to happen before Jeanie isn't actually in charge.
The point being, even if he wanted to go completely ham with the makeover, you can't do that for what is the most pressing business anyway. Like, it is not responsibly possible. So with that in mind, you might as well take a beat. Mark Walter has been around this organization for a while. He was the next highest shareholder, not named Buss. I imagine he's already been observing a lot. He had already formed some opinions, because why wouldn't you, especially when you have the right of first refusal and you're the most likely person to own this team if it's ever sold. But I imagine he's going to take his time. He's going to see how some of the principles operate under his watch as opposed to Jeanie's watch, how they work as things, I imagine, start increasingly becoming more expanded and more collaborative. And then you make your really big decisions from there.
I think that's, you're getting here to one of the important aspects of this, which is speed. I think Lakers fans over time, I think we're going to learn a lot over time. You use the word, the question, like, is this sort of a semantic question with Jeanie as the governor and who's in charge? Like, she will remain running the Lakers and stuff like that. There's a lot of wiggle room in what that actually means, because I don't think there's anybody who believes that the basketball operation is going to run exactly the same way. It's not going to run in exactly the way that the Buss family has done it. I don't even think it's going to run in the same way that the Buss family would do it if they had, say, I don't know, a gajillion % more money to spend on all the stuff that they really haven't been spending money on over the last, 15, 20 years. Things will culturally be different and all that kind of stuff. But there's a speed question here and a time question that I think Lakers fans need to consider And that is what we are going to consider next. But first, I want to tell you about CarGurus. Shopping for a car should not be exhausting. It shouldn't be incredibly stressful, but it can be, because it's hard to know sometimes what price you're paying, and then the price can change, and then there are fees, and then you get to the dealership, and suddenly the price that you were quoted isn't the price that you're paying, and all these other things. I have purchased a car using CarGurus as a tool, and it is fantastic. Cuts through the noise and lets you know you're getting the deal that you want, and that the deal that you want will be the deal you get when you get to the dealership. With over 4 million listings, CarGurus has more new and used cars than any other major online marketplace in the US. They verify your dealers, they provide real price analysis, they give you the tools and data that you need to make the right choice for your 2015 Honda Odyssey. And every other car for that matter. But specifically, if you want a 2015 Honda Odyssey, I can vouch for that. They do great work. And if it's very simple. You put in the car you want, you check off all the stuff you want to see in it. I wanted a certified vehicle. They made that easy. I wanted a certain amount of mileage. They made that easy. I got a quote. I got a dealership that said, here's the number you're going to pay. I went to the dealership that day, and that's the number I paid when I got there. The whole thing took like an hour. It was great. So it's no wonder then that SimilarWeb estimated traffic data shows that CarGurus is the number 1 most visited car shopping site, because it makes it that easy. Buy or sell your car in your next car today with CarGurus. Go to CarGurus.com. Go to CarGurus.com to make sure your big deal is the best deal. CarGurus.com, CarGurus.com. We'll get back to this question of timing here in a second, but it is worth pointing out that both Lakers stars have weighed in on this thing, and it matters if
well,
LeBron,
one publicly, one through reportedly. Yes.
Right. LeBron James, it is nice to know if LeBron James is on board, and reportedly he is. But it doesn't really matter all that much, because he's not going to be here for most of this transition from the Buss family to Mark Walter. Who does matter, Andy, is Luka Doncic, because people are looking for any sign that this assumed extension with the Lakers might be in jeopardy. This ain't it. He enthusiastically endorsed new ownership.
Yeah, he tweeted out, "The Lakers are an amazing organization. I'm looking forward to meeting Mark and excited about the future. I'm also grateful to Jeanie and the Buss family for welcoming me to LA, and I'm happy that Jeanie will continue to be involved. I look forward to working with both of them to win championships." So to your point, Luka seems thus far very happy, and there are no reason whatsoever, at least so far, to believe that he will not at some point sign an extension that, whether it's 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it's
he
going
wants
to be,
it to look like.
It will be exactly what he wants, and it will be for a lot of money.
I mean, and look, this is one of those things when you look at the Lakers and like what needs to change in terms of basketball operations. How they treat their stars is not necessarily one of those things. Like, they have always done a good job of responding to what their stars are asking for, providing them the architecture they want, the flexibility to bring in a trainer, to have let's call it different rules for media and PR than say Dorian Finney-Smith or Dalton Connect. Like, LeBron can do things a little bit differently, and Kobe.
I mean, to be fair, LeBron actually is a pretty accessible superstar.
Well, he's very accessible.
He's there. I just want to make sure people understand that LeBron is pretty available.
Sure, but if they want their own trainer, if they want their own, if they want their sort of own PR architecture and all these other things, that's what they've had. Kobe had, people that handled him as much, like, and Kobe, want a locker on each side of you, we can make that happen, whatever it is. Like, the Lakers are good at that sort of thing. They are good at welcoming the families of their stars, really all their players, but particularly like treating those people well to make sure they want to stay. That doesn't necessarily need to change. So I can't imagine why Luka would look at this and be like, same organization, same basic ethos about this stuff. I look over there and see like what the Dodgers are doing, and they seem to have a bunch of really happy stars and do really well. And the new guy is way richer than the old family that he's replacing. I can't figure out what the downside would be, but it's still good to know that he's 2 thumbs up.
Yeah. And, we have not heard directly from LeBron. And because LeBron is both so well known for weighing in on a lot of different things on social media, but also very calculated in what he says and does not say. I know from doing 710 ESPN earlier on Thursday with Travis Rogers filling in for DeMarco Farr that, we talked about, does it mean something that LeBron hasn't said anything? And what I basically said was, it could, but I would caution before deciding that it's something bad. I would caution before reading too heavily into this. LeBron, for what it is worth, the Dodgers have celebrated LeBron on a few occasions. They did a LeBron bobblehead night in 2020. LeBron and the Dodgers teamed up directly to create polling stations for the election at Dodger Stadium. Like there is no reason to believe that in terms of whatever is an established relationship between LeBron and the Dodgers, that it would make LeBron skittish.
Mm-hmm.
I do imagine, though, that LeBron is aware that the power dynamic in that organization for him has changed in a lot of ways, like beyond knowing that it is Luka's organization. Like the idea of the series of open-ended 1+1 contracts kind of in perpetuity as, 50 mil a pop. The idea that would automatically be okay without a discussion. I'm not saying it will or won't happen, but I think Mark Walter would be probably more willing to have a difficult conversation with LeBron about this than Jeanie or Rob would. I'm very confident that would be the case, if for no other reason than, it's a new thing now, and Mark Walter can still honor the history and tradition of this organization to still treat the stars well without having, I think, some of the same emotional connection, but sometimes I think emotional paralysis that Jeanie Buss often goes through.
I get what you're saying. And I think there's certainly the latter part.
And to be clear, it does not have to be hostile. This does not have to be.
But I also think that is so far away from being a thing in terms of it. And here's a couple of reasons. First, there's just no indication that any of that is even mildly a thing. But also, too, the timing issue, and this gets to that. Like, they're not making it is very one thing that is clear. Like, nothing that is going to happen this summer. Everything that was going to happen is going to happen the same way, probably. I mean, I would
imagine so.
It's gonna, they're going to pursue the same free agents. The same basketball people are going to be making the basketball decisions. They're going to be I don't think there's going to be a lot of even noticeable change in the operation of stuff. Who's making decisions, what the basketball department looks like, and all these other things until there is an actual sale, or at the very least, until there's a date that the board of governors in the NBA can even vote on the thing. And, Ramona reported on air on Thursday that, there's still lawyers and bankers and all these things going through the agreement to make, before any of this stuff gets finalized. So the big thing that came from the conversations and some of the other reporting at The Athletic and all this other stuff is the change is going to happen, but it's not going to happen super fast. So, I think the people who are making basketball decisions are going to be making the same decisions for probably a year, possibly a couple. I think you might start seeing signs that more money is being spent in certain places. It wouldn't shock me if the scouting staff, for example, started to get beefed up a little faster, maybe even preceding a sale and something like that, where it's like everybody kind of knows where the money's coming in or whatever it is. Like, stuff like that might start to accelerate. But in terms of basketball decisions and stuff like that, so I just don't think the timeline of LeBron, given where he is going to be affected all that much by this change, because, probably not staying for more than I mean, this year and maybe next year, is he going to play for 3 years, 4 years, 5? We'll see. And if he does stay,
all I'm saying, I'm not, so it's clear to people, because I've already seen it misinterpreted some in the comments. I'm not saying that Mark Walter would want LeBron out the door ASAP. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying the idea that this can be as open-ended as LeBron wants it, and it would just be accepted, I think is more likely with Jeanie as the ultimate shot caller than Mark Walter as the ultimate shot caller. I think Mark Walter will be more likely to say, we want you here. We need to be able to have more of a concrete plan for this, a concrete or closer to concrete end game,
maybe,
so we can properly build. Because, I mean, you've said this as well. It is very difficult to work within this setup.
Right.
Regardless of what
I don't know if LeBron continues to play at a high level. I mean, if LeBron's play falls off in any reasonable way, I'm not sure the Lakers will extend this thing, indefinitely. But I also don't know how the Lakers will respond to LeBron if they would be like, no, we're not doing a 1-and-1. If he has a good season next year, anyway, I think it's possible. I think it's a scenario for conflict that is, to me, so far down the road that you're obviously not
consider it that
wrong.
far down the road, because it could become his next contract in a month. But regardless,
do you think that if LeBron comes in and says, I want to do a 1-and-1, you can answer this after the break, I guess, but if you think LeBron says this deal, I want to do a 1-and-1, that Jeanie and Rob would be like, okay, do you really think that Mark Walter would step in and say no?
I don't know if he'd step in.
We can answer that after the break.
Okay, that will be coming up after the break. Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Wayfair. There's nothing like stepping into your own office space and feeling like you've escaped to a personal oasis. If you're wanting to update your patio this season, Wayfair has made it really easy to turn it into a space that feels like yours, comfortable, stylish, ready for summer. And Wayfair has everything you need to level up your outdoor space: conversation sets, outdoor bars, fire pits, hot tubs, gazebos, and even the perfect string lights to set a vibe. It's like a backyard that feels like a resort, but without the resort price tag. And whether your style is clean and modern or more eclectic or just something hard to describe, but it's really super specific, you'll be able to filter out and figure out exactly what your space should look like and the budget through Wayfair. The delivery, fast, free, and hassle-free. That's really important. Like, even with larger items, you can make this feel like your own private retreat. Don't wait. Make your outdoor space your dream oasis today with Wayfair. Enjoy it all summer long. Head to wayfair.com right now. Shop a huge outdoor selection. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
So it's possible I just want to make sure I may have not understood what you were.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go deep into the weeds.
No, but it's an important. But what you were raising, if I understood it correctly, actually is really relevant. Like you said, that's it's because LeBron is making this choice soon. It's coming up pretty soon. Do you think that anything that has to do with LeBron's contract going forward, the one that he's picking up or not picking up or whatever it is going to be impacted at all by the ownership change?
Like I said, it's pure speculation. All I'm saying is I can picture Mark Walter asking more questions about how much longer do you think this is going to go? We need to have a respectful but more uncomfortable conversation, because we need to have an ability to map out what we're going to be doing with Luka in his prime, and this thing that is just sort of an ethereal loop where we don't know exactly when the money is going to be off the books. We don't know exactly how to plan for a couple years down the road, 3 years down the road, because all these guys are looking ahead. And it is difficult to do that when it's essentially like a year-to-year lease. And obviously LeBron is playing at a high level. And if the NBA was like baseball, I would say pay LeBron whatever the hell he wants.
No, we've gone through all the arguments about why this is complicated, and there's no question that it is.
All I'm saying is I think Mark Walter would be more likely to have a difficult conversation than Jeanie and Rob would. Whether that's going to happen in 3 weeks, I don't know, and it's irresponsible of me to speculate it. All I'm saying is I imagine LeBron recognizes that dynamic changes with Mark Walter. That's it.
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, we had a lot of interesting conversations, and there is sort of a running debate around a few places in NBA social media and NBA media broadly about how much difference this actually makes. And we had a conversation with one of our media colleagues just about who sort of downplaying this basically because the Lakers don't need the same level of competence as other teams do because they have so many natural advantages. It sort of goes to the sort of Lakers exceptionalism idea, but players want to play here, stars force their way here or come by free agency or something like that. I think there's a lot wrong with the premise of the idea that even, to what degree Lakers exceptionalism even exists. Obviously, Anthony Davis forced his way here. Players have forced their way to a lot of different teams. There's a handful of teams that are sort of routinely the destination for this sort of thing. LeBron obviously signed here as a free agent. But other than that, I can't really think of any free agents that actually sign here. Certainly not as a discount. And certainly not, with the idea of the Lakers just lured me here with their Laker stuff. The Lakers, to my understanding, I think you agree, Andy, have more often than not won and been successful in spite of, rather than because of, management. I think management has
certainly post Dr. Buss's passing. During, I guess, the glory days, the salad days, which, to be fair to even Mitch Kupchak and Jim Buss post Dr. Buss's passing, and now Rob Pelinka, it's a very different NBA then. It was a much easier NBA for Dr. Buss, who was at the time one of the wealthiest owners, to swing his proverbial manhood around through cash and, through.
God, there are so many one-liners that you could go.
Yeah,
with
yeah,
I'm not going to.
Yeah, I know.
Just saying, they're all there.
I want
the audience to understand that I recognize the opening and choosing not to go through it.
No, thank you. I felt like I skidded out safely, but this was a different NBA in terms of the cash that Dr. Buss had, fewer limitations on the way you could spend it, a less constrictive CBA, a landscape where, pre-social media, pre-NBA package, pre-athletes with their personal branding, it really was much more important to your visibility to be a Laker, to be a Knick, to be a Bull. It's one of the reasons we talked about on the show a lot, that the biggest problem the All-Star game for the NBA will never overcome is the game doesn't mean what it used to as a showcase, and that can't be fixed. So they're operating in a different landscape right now. And, in this new landscape, the idea of counting on, for lack of a better way of putting it, Lakers exceptionalism to paper over everything, to conquer everything. I'm not saying that being a Laker or owning the Lakers doesn't have some inherent advantages, because it does. But by definition, over the last 15 years, they don't solve everything, because Lakers have spent most of that time either getting bounced in the first round or missing the playoffs altogether.
I will even say that, and look, LeBron could have gone to the Clippers, I suppose, but I
don't even know if they have the cap space to do it.
I really understand my point. LeBron wanted to go to Los Angeles.
There's only two choices.
There are two choices for that. And so, yes, the Lakers benefit by being in Los Angeles. But if LeBron, if the more entertainment-based stuff was based in New York, LeBron could be a Knick. It's and so in that sense, they're lucky, and that is an institutional advantage. Anthony Davis said, I want to go to LA, in part because LeBron was there and all that. So there are times when, it comes in handy. But I would say, if I had to choose between the stereotype of Lakers exceptionalism, all these advantages that the Lakers have, versus saying that it's a myth and it's BS, I'm closer to BS than I am the mythology. Because over the last 15, 20 years, like you say, it hasn't mattered. And it hasn't been a lot different than other teams. Players have gone to Miami, they've gone to Golden State, they've gone to the Knicks, they've gone to different places at different times. And so I think the advantage is smaller, certainly, than it used to be. But the big thing is even if it existed 20 years ago, 30, 30, like you say, 40 years ago, it absolutely did. Showtime era and all that stuff. Even if it existed 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, the rules are such, everything has been done to mitigate all of those advantages that the Lakers have. And so I would say the premium on competence has never been higher in the NBA. So the Lakers might have and this was a debate we were having, like using these terms, a higher floor than certain teams. Although you and I did pre and post game for a lot of teams who showed just how low that floor can still be, even with the Lakers.
Well, especially, the kids era, for example, had a lot of losing, but I think if that era had been run better, you could have felt more confident about the direction that was being mapped out for the team. Like not all losses are created equally, and not all losing eras.
Competent management means that their lows would be higher and their highs would be higher.
Yes.
And their highs would be more consistent.
Yes.
Yes, the Lakers have won a title in the last, in 2020, they won a title. They went to a Western Conference Finals. But overall, like on a year-to-year basis,
you shouldn't take that for granted, by the way.
Of course not. And I'm not, you and everybody knows we are not asterisk people, but it is worth noting that the title that they did win was under conditions that are absolutely not replicable in any other way ever again, and never were able to be templated before that. So like,
namely the rest for like 3 months off.
Right.
And
they were really good before that. They were in first.
Well, they were great. Stuff. It wasn't fluky.
I don't know if they're winning if in the same situation with no COVID layoff. I don't know if they win that title. It's unknowable. My point is, better competence, better work around the margins, where the details of trades are better, where scouting is better, where all of these, where the coaching staffs are better. All of this stuff would make it so the team performs at a higher level more consistently. And then you take the natural advantages that the Lakers have, and they get even better. That's what the Dodgers are. The Dodgers have tons of natural advantages, most of the baseball version of the same advantages the Lakers have. They combine location with wealth with competence, and that is why they've won division titles every year for the last 600 years. It seems like
there's no world in sports, and I would argue no industry period, where competence doesn't become an advantage, or that competence doesn't matter. If you want to say that the Lakers perhaps need that competence less than some other organizations, I think you and I would both argue, no, they don't. But let's just say even you think that they need it less than some of these other ones. Let's just grant that supposition. That doesn't mean that having it wouldn't matter. And I'll just say this, the idea that the Lakers will just fall ass backward into championships because it's ordained by the basketball gods who root Lakers, and that's why Lakers exceptionalism exists. That is the mentality that has gotten this organization into a lot of problems.
Yeah.
The idea that at the end of the day, we are the Lakers, mighty, mighty Lakers.
But details don't matter because we're the Lakers. And
right.
So
that is the worst. I mean, it's one thing, I guess, for fans to think it, or even some people who cover the league. I mean, I think they're dead ass wrong, but whatever. The problem is, and you and I know this because we've covered this team for a long time and we've been reasonably close to it, there were people in the building who believed it.
No
and
question.
That's where it gets dangerous.
All right. So lots to get into next week. We'll go into the weekend. We'll see what shakes out. We'll have an NBA champion by then. So a lot to think about. The offseason officially begins for the NBA over the weekend and into Monday. So lots to talk about then. Locked On Lakers on YouTube. As we go hang out with over 35,000 subscribers. We will see everyone on Monday.